What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto has a secret fiance? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Uzumaki Naruto was friendless. He had been that way for the longest time, before he had been kicked out of the orphanage. His only true friend was the Hokage of the village, and even he was more of a grandfather. Naruto was utterly alone in the world. The village he had grown to love simply hated him. The villagers' eyes only showed hatred, pure hatred, for his presence. So Naruto was silent. He glared back, but eventually the stares became too much. He ran from the playground, away from the whispers, the glares. Why did they hate him so much? What had he done? What had he? Are you okay? A voice, another child's voice, stopped him. The blonde-haired boy turned to look at the voice's owner. A dark-haired girl stared at him curiously. Her stare wasn't filled with the obvious hate of the villagers, rather it just held question in it. Naruto wiped away his tears, not daring to show how much the villagers had hurt him. I'm fine, Naruto replied, with a bit of a loud stutter. The girl was sitting on a swing. She shrugged. My mom says it's okay to cry sometimes, it means we're human. My dad said only weak people cry, though. I'm not weak. I didn't say you were, she replied defensively, beginning to swing. That's just what my dad says. What's your name, anyways? Naruto. Well, I'm Aiko. Do you want to swing with me? Aiko gestured to the swing seat next to her, which was empty. Naruto cautiously took it, sitting down, watching as the black-haired girl quickly got higher and higher. His own seat didn't move. Why aren't you swinging? Aiko slowed herself down, to stare at him curiously again. I don't know how. What? No one taught you how to swing before? Naruto was silent. Aiko shrugged. Okay well, just watch me, I'll go slow. She began to shimmy herself again, kicking her legs out and under in a rhythm, slowly getting the seat to move back and forth. Naruto cautiously copied her, and quickly found himself moving in a similar motion. Aiko, seeing that her new friend had got it, quickly began to kick out and in faster. Naruto soon found himself rising up and down at a rate that even slightly scared him. It was exhilarating. At the top of his swing, he felt his heart drop as he fell, only to be swung upwards again by the force of his movement. See? Swinging is the best. The wind pressed against his face. Naruto's heart swelled as he laughed happily, genuinely, at the feeling that had found him. He had a friend, a real friend. For nearly an hour they swung back and forth, only stopping to talk a little and catch their breath. Naruto opened up, little by little to Aiko, admitting that he lived by himself, that he was an orphan. He should have known it was too good to last. A black-haired boy, in similar blue clothes to Aiko, approached them. They slowed, and Aiko greeted him. Hi Sasuke-chan. Mom wants you. Sasuke replied shortly. Aiko nodded and hopped off the swing, waving to Naruto. Bye Naruto. I'll meet you here tomorrow, okay? Naruto nodded mutely as she ran off. Sasuke, however, stayed, glaring at him. Who are you? Sasuke asked bluntly. I'm Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. Who? Whatever, I don't care. You stay away from my sister. Naruto blinked, but, why? We're friends, I think. You aren't friends. Sasuke replied hotly. She's from the Uchiha clan, the greatest clan in this village. You're a nobody, stay away from her. With that, Sasuke turned away and ran in the same direction Aiko had, towards the Uchiha compound. His swing swung listlessly under him. Naruto despaired at the loss of his new friend. He was alone again. Wow Ni-chan, how do you hit all those targets without your Sharingan? Aiko wondered aloud as Itachi struck all the targets again with his kunai. Sasuke looked on in similar amazement. One day you'll learn too. Can you teach us now? Aiko asked excitedly. Not today, Aiko-chan. Ah, Ni-san, you never want to teach us. Sasuke complained. We're old enough, we can do it too. Itachi picked Aiko up and put her on his back as he began to walk towards the Uchiha compound, Sasuke following behind him. There is no need to rush to gain strength, Sasuke. Itachi said finally, after a minute of walking in silence. Aiko had rested her head on her brother's shoulder. Sasuke scowled. Dad says we should be stronger, more like you. Is it true you were already a genin when you were our age, Ni-san? Yes. Dad loves you more than us. Aiko whispered softly into her brother's shoulder. Itachi felt her shudder against him, making sure her tears stayed unshed. Itachi cursed his father's pride in him, his foolish plans, and most of all he cursed the elders of Konoha for putting him in this position. Do not take what father says seriously. Itachi replied after a moment, he loves you both very much, just the way you are. Neither of his siblings responded, though Aiko held him a bit tighter. Sasuke didn't feel his brother's words, they were empty. Father loved Itachi more because he was stronger, because he was talented. Sasuke was neither. He trained so hard at the academy but didn't progress at a rate that made his father proud. All his father could seem to think about was Itachi. He knew his sister felt similarly, but at least she had their mother. Sasuke's mother loved him, he knew that, but it was obvious that she loved Aiko more. Aiko and Itachi, they were both so much better than him. Everyone who met Aiko adored her. Sure, they smiled at Sasuke, were genuinely polite, but his coldness, his blunt tone, it made people like him less. Despite his clan, Sasuke had no friends, all he had was his brother and sister. Itachi was never one for talking, but Sasuke felt him pulling away from them. Aiko had many friends at the ninja academy in their class, but Sasuke only had Aiko. Every day Aiko would chatter about Sakura this, Ino that, and Sasuke would be silent, left out again. The other boys had tried to make friends with him, sure, but they weren't able to stand his arrogance, his haughty belief that he was superior to them. It left him quite alone. The other children had their friends, Sasuke had no one. Of course, he wasn't the only one. There was also Naruto, who was even more alone than he was. Sasuke had Aiko, despite her growth away from him. Naruto had no one, no family, and no friends. More than that, Naruto was despised by the villagers. They seemed to hide it well, but Sasuke could see it in their eyes. They seemed to hate Naruto for no apparent reason. Just as he noticed the faint dislike that everyone who met him seemed to have, he noticed the ire of the villagers. At first he had believed it was due to the pranks that Naruto played, the loud voice he had developed, but it was too deep. The hatred for the blonde had left Sasuke at a loss. He ignored the conundrum, Naruto was unimportant. He was dead last in their class, he failed every test, slept in class, and couldn't even hit one target with kunai. Sasuke and Aiko were at the other spectrum completely. Sasuke topped the class with Aiko close behind. Their teachers crowed that they were prodigies, even though their father simply deferred to the fact that Itachi was better. Sasuke had played with the idea of becoming friends with Naruto, but like the villagers, his father seemed to despise the boy, and he stayed away, in fear of his father's hatred turning on him. The death of Uchiha Shisui. Sasuke was suddenly made aware of the three Uchiha that stood before them. Itachi had put Aiko down and was currently staring at the other three, something akin to rage in his eyes. Quicker than Sasuke could blink, Itachi attacked the other three, sending the three to the ground before they could barely activate their own Sharingan. Itachi. Before Sasuke could call out, his father had appeared, grabbing Itachi by the arm, even though there was no need. Itachi made no attempt to attack the already downed Uchiha again. His father apologized to the three quickly, claiming the Itachi had been under a lot of stress. To Sasuke's amazement, Itachi fell to his knees and apologized as well. The strange scene finally ended. Itachi went off alone, and his father sighed and shook his head before walking off. Aiko and Sasuke were left alone. Sasuke stared at the back of his older brother's head as he walked away. What just happened? Aiko wondered aloud. Sasuke shrugged, he had no idea. Aiko, I'm going to do it. Do what? His sister asked curiously. Sasuke scowled at the back of Itachi's head. I'm going to become stronger than Itachi, and then father will look at me the way he does at him. Father loves you, Sasuke. He loves Itachi more. It's not a contest, Ni-chan. Aiko defended her brother and father. Sasuke glared at her, and eyes widening, she stepped back uncertainly. Sasuke-chan? Don't call me that, he replied hotly, and stormed into their home. Aiko felt tears coming to the surface. Her brother had looked at her with such rage. It scared her. See you tomorrow, Aiko-san. Bye Ino, Sakura. Aiko giggled and walked in the opposite direction as her two best friends. The academy was a fun place. Sure, they were learning to kill, but after being isolated as an Uchiha her whole life, it was nice to make new friends outside the clan. Inside she only had Sasuke. Here, she had all kinds of friends. Thinking of her brother made her good mood disappear. He had grown cold to her. Through everything, she always had her family. But now Sasuke was moving his own way. After his best friend Shisui's death, Itachi had grown distant. Her father and mother were always meeting in secret with the rest of the clan. Aiko realized that something big must be going on within the Uchiha clan, but she didn't know what. Instead of investigating, she retreated into her schoolwork. It was none of her business what the clan leaders wanted to do with the Uchiha. She strived to do her best in the academy. Although her grades improved even further, her progress had nothing on Sasuke, who improved in leaps and bounds. Uzumaki barrage. A voice screamed nearby, and she was startled out of her reverie. In the nearby training field, two figures were practicing at different target logs. The nearest was Uzumaki Naruto, the class dead last. The boy had almost become a friend, but drew away from her after their first encounter, and she didn't press him. She walked by, glancing at how the Uzumaki barrage, basically a wave of every kunai and shuriken that Naruto had, missed the log completely. Shaking her head, Aiko thought about going to give Naruto a few tips but decided against it. The second figure practicing was her brother Sasuke, who had made it a habit to stay late to practice his weapon accuracy. Unlike Naruto, Sasuke's throws were quiet, precise, and were always made in 2s and 3s, striking their targets every time. Sasuke glanced at Aiko, his dark eyes meeting hers. She waved, he didn't. Aiko's heart hurt a little more, but she continued to walk home as if it didn't bother her. She moved quickly through the Konoha streets, mumbling greetings and small smiles to those who waved or called out to her. The villagers were quite nice to her. Her clan made up the bulk of the police force, which interacted and protected the village of Konoha itself, so the Uchiha were well liked. Aiko herself never had problems making friends, unlike Sasuke. People found her demeanor kind and good-natured. Her father had scolded her multiple times for it, saying that she was too nice. Her mother on the other hand commended her on the ability to befriend almost anyone, although she was ashamed to admit it. Mother loved her more than Sasuke or Itachi. But since father ignored her, Aiko jealously held tight to her relationship with her mother. This meant sometimes going along to the grocer's or some other boring task, but it was nice to actually spend time with a family member. Most of the rest of the clan was older than her, and didn't want to hang out with a kid like her, so her immediate family was really her only choice. Maybe soon they would come back together. Her family had been drifting apart lately, but mother truly loved them all, as did Aiko. She knew Itachi loved her and Sasuke, and father just had trouble expressing his feelings. Soon Sasuke would see that father was proud of him, and Itachi would talk to mother again, so she wouldn't cry when she thought no one was listening, and Sasuke would come back to her. A sharp pain ran through her and she realized she was missing her twin deeply. They had always been so close, they had done everything together, eating, sleeping, training, all of it. The academy came and she had new friends, and she was happy. Sasuke should have made friends too, but he was too shy, a bit too arrogant. The other boys didn't realize it was simply his mask, his way of living as an Uchiha. Maybe she should have tried and helped him more, helped him make friends. But Aiko knew Sasuke, and she knew he hated anyone trying to help him when he thought he didn't need it. It would simply cause him to resent her more. She entered the Uchiha district, distracted by her thoughts, not noticing the two empty streets at first. Aiko missed the dark reddish-black patches that were leaking from some of the house doors. She didn't notice a few of the shattered and cracked windows, or the growing metallic tang that was beginning to hang in the air. Something was wrong, it was too quiet. She moved through the streets of the Uchiha compound towards her home. Usually people of her clan were out and about at this time, but it was silent. Could there be a clan meeting that she didn't know about? Ignoring the niggling urge to run, to leave, she continued to her own home. 2 steps from the door of her home, a sharp pain hit her neck, and with a gasp she blacked out. Sasuke had noticed the blood. He had peeked through the broken windows and saw the dead bodies of his clanmates, his family. He raced through the streets towards his own home, panting, the taste of blood in the air and the descending odor of death setting in. He entered his home, desperate to find his parents, and desperate not to find their corpses. The door slid open easily, and Sasuke watched as his mother's body fell atop his father, who was also still. Aiko was lying in the corner, immobile. "No," Sasuke moaned. A figure was moving out from the shadow, in the pale light of the now rising moon. Sasuke made out of the figure of his brother, decked out in full Anbu gear. Aniki, what happened to them? As he said it, he saw his brother's slight movement, the sword in his hand, glinting with the blood of their family. Sasuke fell to his knees, moaning, Aniki, what have you done? What I had to. What I need to test my potential. What are you talking about? You killed our family, to test? My potential. Itachi finished coldly. In a blur of motion that Sasuke had no hope of following, Itachi had him by the neck and pinned against the wall. Sasuke made no move to struggle, his eyes dull with the pain of losing his family. You do not hate me. Itachi intoned softly. You're my brother? Because you don't understand what I have done. Itachi brought him to eye level, and Sasuke stared into the Sharingan of his brother, which had taken a strange windmill shape. Let me show you. Suddenly Sasuke was out of his body, in a spectral form. He watched as Itachi killed everyone in the clan. He became aware of the pain. Suddenly, he was the one being killed. Every time Itachi stabbed a cousin, an aunt, Sasuke felt it. The deep pain, the loss of air. Hate me. Over and over the killings played out. Itachi relentlessly slaughtered everyone, the elderly, the teens not much older than Sasuke. He killed them all over and over in front of him. Hours seemed to pass. Detest me? Sasuke saw his father's horror as Itachi ran him through with his sword. Sasuke felt the pain of his mother as Itachi's cut sliced her deep, too deep to survive. It hurt. It was more than anything he had ever felt in his life, and he felt it over and over again. Live in an unnatural way. Sasuke wanted it to stop. He wanted it to end. Death. He wanted death. For it is the only way to kill me. Sasuke's world went black. How are they, really? Sasuke was just released from the hospital. They both seemed to be in shock. They talked to no one. Who's watching over them? You will be, now. From a distance, of course. What about my other assignment? Neko-san will be taking over for you. Tell him to take it seriously. That kid is slippery. He can be a handful, that is sure. I will be sure to properly warn Neko. Hokage-sama? Can they recover from this? I hope so, Kakashi. They're all we have left of the Uchiha clan. A 9-year-old Naruto watched Aiko from a distance, the girl who had once been as happy and carefree as him. She had withdrawn into a shell. Naruto watched as slowly her friends, at first so supportive, left her. Oh, they made the effort to say hi to her every once in a while, but the quiet, her unresponsiveness was disheartening, and even scary. Iruka-sensei had stopped asking her questions in class. She was quieter than Aburame Shino. She spoke to no one except maybe Sasuke, and that was only a few words in public. She was still near the top of the class, but the spark that had allowed her to challenge Sasuke for the very top spot was gone. Naruto felt like he was watching a shell. More than anything, Naruto could feel it, her pain. It was terrible. He knew that pain, it was his pain. He hid behind the mask of childish laughter, but inside he hurt too. Did Aiko hurt more than him? He wouldn't be surprised if she did. Aiko had a family, and they were taken from her. As for Sasuke, Naruto watched as the boy became even more withdrawn. At first he had been like Aiko, unspeaking. The pain, however, disappeared from his eyes after several months. It was replaced with something that Naruto couldn't quite identify. Determination? Anger? The boy stayed at the top of the class. No one was close, least of all Naruto, who was only challenged for the bottom by Shikamaru, who was determined to sleep through as many tests as he could and still pass. Aiko. Naruto remembered the young girl who had reached out to him on the playground, the girl who happily swung as high as she possibly could, and who taught him to do so too. Who taught him how to really feel happy? Who was so hurt now, so withdrawn, so alone? I want to help you, but I don't know how. You and Sasuke, you're alone like me, but you're so much better than me at everything. You're of the Uchiha clan, and I'm nothing, just an orphan. What disgusted Naruto even more was most of the friends that Aiko had held so close had abandoned her to chase after her brother, who they thought was cute. It disgusted Naruto. Sakura and Ino had been best friends with Aiko. Now they bickered and were bitter rivals trying to claim Sasuke's heart. Sasuke ignored them, which was a plus in Naruto's book. All the blonde could think about was how Aiko had never been more alone in her life and no one was reaching out to help her. She has Sasuke, she'll be alright. Naruto failed to even convince himself that for even a second. So, now he knows. I will make sure Ibiki tortures every possible bit of information out of Mizuki for this. Let him know I'm ready to help. I'm putting Naruto on your team. I'm sure you can count, Hokage-sama. I know what I'm doing, don't get cute with me, Kakashi. Sorry, Hokage-sama, if even you're disrespecting me. I shudder to think what everyone thinks of this old man. We did it, Aiko. We're genin. Sasuke gave his sister a genuine smile, and she returned it from her favorite seat on their couch. The apartment they lived in now was at the outskirts of the Uchiha compound. Although it was their right, neither could bear living in the main family home. You're the top rookie of the year, congratulations. Aiko's tone was happy, but it lacked life, the life his sister used to have. It hurt Sasuke, as always, to hear her like this. Sure, she interacted with him, but it wasn't the same Aiko. Itachi, their own brother, had ruined her. I'll make you pay for this, Itachi. I'm sorry if I'm not the same Sasuke, I've tried hard all these years. Aiko said softly, shocking him that she could read him so easily. Sasuke replied softly, you're still my sister, and I still love you. Do you think I've been foolish, all these years? Not talking to anyone, driving everyone but you away. I've done the same. I know quite a few girls who would say otherwise, they're drawn to you. They're annoying, that's all they are. Aiko came over and sat by him, and she slowly engulfed him in a hug. Thank you, Sasuke-chan. She mumbled into his shoulder. Sasuke patted her back awkwardly. I haven't done anything. You've been my brother, that's more than enough. Aiko pulled away, her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. Feeling his gaze on her, she gave a little laugh that cracked into a choked sob. I'm being silly, when we're placed on teams I can't act like this with everyone. Teams. It made Sasuke angry that he might be split from Aiko, the only one in his class he really cared about. Plus, if they weren't on the same team, how could he be sure she was safe? How could he look out for her? The last bit of family he had, and he might lose her because she was placed on a team with idiots. Aiko saw Sasuke's darkening expression and playfully flicked his ear, bringing him back like she knew it would. No reason to get moody. Sasuke-chan, I told you not to call me that. Sasuke attempted half-heartedly, but Aiko could see his smile. Yet I still do it, don't I? Naruto couldn't stop grinning, he had passed. Against all odds he had passed, and he contained the Kyuubi within him. His grin lessened, and Iruka-sensei had gotten hurt saving him. His grin faded. Iruka-sensei was alright at least, and the medic had fixed him up in a few minutes, although he had quite a few bandages. He assured Naruto that he didn't blame him, even though Naruto knew the whole ordeal was his fault. The blonde played a bit with his headband, enjoying the feel of metal in his hand. The warm blue cloth pressed up against his head, signifying that he was finally a ninja of Konoha. What are you doing here, Naruto? Naruto turned to face a sleepy-looking Shikamaru, who continued, only ninja who passed the exam can be here, and I know you didn't pass. Naruto gave him a huge grin. Oh yeah? I did pass, don't you see this regulation headband? Huh, Shikamaru? I'm a ninja too. Troublesome? Shikamaru muttered and went back to sleep. Naruto turned back, facing the front again, his grin restored. The blonde watched as Sasuke and Aiko walked in and took seats in the row across from him. Aiko glanced at him, and feeling brave, he gave her a little wave. She cautiously returned it, and Naruto's heart swelled. She was still there. Aiko wasn't an emotionless pit like her brother. I want to help you. Naruto thought silently, but I don't know how. More than anything, he wanted to be on Aiko's team. Maybe then he could help her the way that she had helped him, by reaching out to him, all those years ago. Iruka walked in the room with a slight limp. Evading the students' concerns of his obvious injuries and bandages, he began his speech to the graduating class. Congratulations, everyone here now officially a ninja of Konoha. As per tradition, you will be split into teams of 3 to be trained under a Junin instructor. You are no longer my students, but I am proud of each and every one of you. Now, there are an odd number of graduates this year, so there will be one team of 4. Ignoring some of the murmurs, Iruka began to call out numbers and Junin senseis. Finally he got to a team that made Naruto pay attention. Team 7, Uzumaki Naruto, Haruno Sakura. A groan went up from somewhere behind him. Naruto ignored it, but was annoyed that he would have to deal with one of Aiko's former friends. Uchiha Sasuke. That same voice cheered, and Naruto felt like rolling his eyes. To think he once thought Sakura was pretty. And Uchiha Aiko. All under the instruction of Junin sensei Hitaki Kakashi. A few complaints went up here. Team 7 had both Uchiha? It wasn't fair at all. Aiko wasn't quite at the top of the class with Sasuke, but she was a few spots below, and Sakura wasn't far behind her. Iruka ignored the comments and continued reading the teams. Team 8, Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino. Under the instruction of Yuhi Kurenai, Naruto was glad that he had been teamed with Aiko, but he had to deal with Sasuke as well. He didn't dislike the boy, but he knew the Uchiha boy didn't like him at all. Maybe Sakura would distract him and he would leave Naruto alone, so he could make friends again with Aiko. And finally, team will consist of Yamanaka Ino, Akamichi Choji, and Nara Shikamaru, under the instruction of Sarutobi Asuma. Iruka closed up his scroll and smiled at them again. It has been a pleasure teaching all of you. You may break for lunch and then come back to this room to meet your instructors. Iruka gave them a final wave and disappeared in a puff of smoke. The newest ninja of Konoha stood and milled around the classroom, looking for their new teammates. Naruto spotted Sasuke and Aiko leaving together and moved to follow, Sakura doing the same. Moving around the other students, he was able to catch them as they were going out the door of the academy. Hey Aiko, and Sasuke. Since we're on a new team together, maybe we should all go get lunch together. Sasuke gave a little snort and continued walking. Aiko stopped though, and Naruto looked at her hopefully. Sakura burst out of the door and shoved past Naruto, who fell to the ground with a cry. She quickly sidestepped Aiko without a word and ran after Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, we should have lunch together now that we're on the same team. The boy continued walking as if she hadn't spoken, and Sakura followed unimpeded. Aiko stared after them for a second, and then turned to Naruto. Lunch together sounds like a good idea, Naruto. Aiko quietly replied, but I don't think Sasuke will join us. Maybe we should ask Sakura if she wants to come. Naruto forced out, wanting to be fair. I don't want her to come. Oh, alright then. It seemed Aiko wasn't too happy with her past friend either. Naruto followed Aiko to a bench, and she pulled out a small lunchbox from her pack, and looked at Naruto questioningly. The boy realized she was looking for his lunch. Oh hey, I usually go out to eat at Ichiraku's. Every day? Yeah kind of. Naruto blushed sheepishly, I don't really like anything else. Naruto cursed himself inwardly, why was he blushing? He looked like an idiot. Where was his usually loud, confident and unbreakable persona? Aiko didn't seem to notice, as she opened her own lunchbox and pulled out 2 sandwiches of what looked like roast beef. She handed Naruto one, here. You have to eat healthier from now on, no more ramen every day. Naruto's persona went 180 as his whiny side took over, but Aiko-chan. I like ramen. Let me guess, you eat it for dinner too. Yes, but ramen is the best food in the world. It tastes really good. Aiko made him take the sandwich, you're just like my brother. All he wants to eat is takeout udon every day of the week. If I didn't make lunch or dinner for him, that's all he would eat. I've never had udon. It looks good though. Naruto mused about the noodles, similar, yet different from ramen. He had seen a few people eating it but never tried it himself. Why haven't you tried it? Get out of my shop you damn brat. I don't like anything other than ramen. Why would I eat some other food when ramen is so obviously amazing? Aiko shrugged and began to eat her sandwich. Naruto cautiously took a bite of his own and found it tasty. Aiko-san. I feel kind of bad taking your lunch. We're teammates now, teammates share with each other. We'll probably eat out a lot but sometimes I'll make lunch for us. It's not that hard to make a couple more sandwiches. But you don't have to do that. Like I said, we're teammates now, Naruto-san. We have to help each other out. Even if you don't like my brother very much, and I don't really like how Sakura chases after him. Naruto was feeling it again, for the first time in a long time. The feeling of having a friend, a real friend. He couldn't keep the stupid grin off his face as he finished up the sandwich. Luckily that's how he usually looked anyways. After they finished lunch, he and Aiko sat in silence. Although she was talking to him, she was obviously still uncomfortable with talking at all. Naruto respected that and didn't say anything, in fear of scaring her off. After a few minutes of this silence, Naruto was broken out of his reverie, in which he had been staring at a tree, as Aiko stood. I think we should head back to the classroom now. We don't want to be late and miss our Junin instructor. Naruto agreed and followed her brisk walk back towards the academy. He was a bit in awe of her, She had suffered so much in her life, and although she had the scars to show it, she pressed on. I can too. I'll be a great ninja so Aiko can rely on me to have her back. Not many people could even stand Naruto in the village, to have someone open up to him, and admit that they would depend on him, and he could depend on them. It was a huge thing. That trust was not something he was willing to easily break. Ah, where is he? Naruto complained for the umpteenth time. They had been sitting for 2 hours after everyone else had left with their instructors. Stop complaining, Naruto, you're just making it worse. Sakura said with a glare at him. He won't get here any faster because you keep talking. Naruto scowled, he couldn't help himself, and they had been waiting here for what felt like forever. Naruto didn't like sitting still for any period of time. Why did their teacher have to be the no-show? Quickly, he set up a little revenge for their missing teacher in the form of an eraser lodged in the door, set up to fall when the door would finally open. He's a Junin, he's not going to fall for that, Sasuke said, rolling his eyes at Naruto's obvious stupidity. Sakura quickly agreed with her crush, who was Naruto to think he could get one over a Junin. Aiko sat, quiet in her own little world. Sasuke knew better than to disturb her. His sister refused to talk to anyone if she didn't want to. She could remain silent for hours on end, despite how much he pressed. She didn't sit with him for lunch today, but that wasn't surprising. She usually didn't so she could avoid his fangirls that never left him alone. Did she eat with the dobi? Sasuke glanced at his new teammate, decked out in a garish orange jumpsuit as always. When he had suggested they eat lunch together, Sasuke blew him off easily enough, but Aiko had stopped to talk to him. Sasuke quickly moved on to escape Sakura, so he wasn't exactly sure what was being said. It didn't matter, his sister could do what she wanted, even if it was hanging with a loser like Naruto just because he was on their team. The door opened, and the eraser plopped down onto a silver head of hair. Naruto started laughing, and Sakura began to apologize for her new teammate's prank. Their new instructor spoke for the first time. My first impression of you, you're all a bunch of idiots. He turned to leave them. Meet me on the roof. The four stood and walked in a group to the roof of the academy, although Sasuke and Naruto had a bit of a fight over who would walk in front. They made it with little injury to either, to find Kakashi already sitting on the ledge. The man was decked out in full Junin body armor and a light green flak jacket. He was masked up to his nose, and only one eye was viewable, the other covered by his headband, which was tilted at an angle. The gray-haired Junin gestured for them to take a seat. So, how about each of you start by introducing themselves? Likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams, that sort of thing. Why don't you start, sensei? Sakura suggested politely, we don't know anything about you. Good point. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I like some things, and dislike some others. My hobbies. The man gave a little laugh. Well, anyways. I don't have any dreams. The genin face faltered, they hadn't learned a thing from their strange instructor. Kakashi was undeterred, pointing at Sakura, alright Pinky, you first. Sakura ignored the barb at her hair color and began, my name is Haruno Sakura. I like. She glanced at Sasuke and giggled, well I dislike loudmouths like Naruto and Ino, and as for hobbies I like to do my hair, read, and… Another glance at Sasuke. My dream is to… A blush formed on Sakura's face as she looked at Sasuke again. Right, Kakashi's sweat dropped, you're next, loudmouth. Kakashi pointed to Naruto, who quickly stood. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and I like ramen. I dislike the 3 minutes it takes for ramen to cook. I like to train and eat ramen, and my dream is to become the greatest Hokage ever. Okay, you, the quiet girl, you're next. Nothing to say? My sister doesn't feel like talking right now. Sasuke spoke up for Aiko, who was ignoring Kakashi's questions. She won't until she wants to. Right, well how about you then, Moody? Sasuke glared. Uchiha Sasuke. I like my sister Aiko, and I dislike almost everything else, especially fangirls and dobes. He glared at Sakura and Naruto here. My hobbies are training, and my dream is an ambition, to kill a certain man, and to revive my clan. Sakura looked on admiringly as Kakashi sighed inwardly, a ramen-obsessed blonde, a fangirl, a mute, and an avenger. What a great team. Alright then, tomorrow we're going to meet at training ground number 7 at 0700 for some survival training. Survival training, sensei? Sakura looked confused. I don't understand. I thought we were ninjas now, training is over. Oh, Kakashi chuckled, you're not quite ninjas yet. There's one more test. Although there were 28 graduates this year, only 9 will officially become genin. That means at least 2 of you are going to fail and go back to the academy after tomorrow. A wave of protests went up from Naruto and Sakura. Aiko and Sasuke remained quiet. Aiko didn't even seem to register the news, and Kakashi had to wonder if she was like this all the time. Sasuke simply had a look of determination, as if he was ready for anything Kakashi could throw at him. Also, you should bother eating tomorrow. Kakashi said, preparing to use Shunshin to teleport away, you'll just throw it all up. With that, Kakashi disappeared in a flurry of leaves, leaving his wayward team behind. Sasuke stood immediately, and turned to Aiko, waiting for her to do the same. The black-haired girl stood up with her twin, but as he turned to leave, she turned back to Naruto and Sakura. Since we're teammates, you both should come to our home for dinner tonight. Dinner? Sakura intoned, at Sasuke-kun's? Sure Aiko, that sounds great. Naruto nodded slowly. He had never been over someone's house before. What was he supposed to wear? Did he have to bring a gift? Aiko, Sasuke muttered. Why did his sister have to try and make friends with these losers? They were just going to drag them down. Hopefully tomorrow he could ensure that only he and Aiko passed Kakashi's tests, so they could get rid of these two. Sakura was already praising Aiko's idea and debating about what to wear, while Naruto looked nervous. Sasuke-chan. A smile flittered across Aiko's face, and Sasuke was startled by it. Aiko hadn't smiled like that in years. These are our new teammates, we should treat them like family. Like family? What was Aiko thinking? A wave of rage swept through Sasuke, they had no family. Itachi had made sure of that. Aiko's smile never left her face as she placed a light hand on her brother's shoulder, which had been tense, but relaxed under her touch. We've been alone for too long, Sasuke. She murmured, as Sakura continued to wonder aloud about Sasuke's house. It's time to open up again. Sasuke turned away, breaking contact. Naruto watched the scene curiously, as Sasuke walked away. Aiko smiled at them, but this time it was more forced, Naruto noted. Is 6:30 good for you too? Sakura nodded quickly, and Naruto nodded as well, a bit slower. With that, Aiko bid them goodbye and turned to follow her brother. Sakura rushed off without as much as looking at Naruto, who turned to go to his own apartment. Where do they live anyways? After pestering a few people that didn't hate or ignore him, Iruka and the Hokage, Naruto got the location of Sasuke and Aiko's home, an apartment near the entrance of the Uchiha district. Iruka also assured him that he didn't have to wear anything special, and the Hokage insisted that a gift was not necessary. Naruto was a bit dubious on that, from what he had heard about going to people's homes, but he took their advice at face value. Around 6:25 p.m., he entered the Uchiha district cautiously. The place was a ghost town, much as he had heard. Although it had never been officially confirmed, the rumor about what had happened 5 years ago was set in stone as fact. A member of the Uchiha clan had gone insane and killed all the members of the clan except for Sasuke and Aiko. Why he had left them alive, no one seemed to know, although there were many guesses, but the man, Itachi, had fled soon after to become a missing nin. To kill a certain man? Was that who Sasuke was talking about? Naruto wondered if Aiko felt the same way. He also wondered why she had shut down and refused to talk to Kakashi. The man had seemed nice enough to Naruto, even though he was over 2 hours late. Naruto left his thoughts behind as he knocked on the door of the only lit apartment in the district, mentally willing himself to be brave. It was only a dinner, he had no reason to be nervous. The door opened and Aiko greeted him with a smile. She had her hair down now instead of her customary ponytail or bun that she usually wore to the academy. Come in Naruto, you're right on time. Naruto cautiously stepped inside, into a well-lived and sitting area. A few kunai were on the table, a manga that Naruto recognized lay open on the couch, and there were a few pairs of shoes and sandals by the door in a neat little row. Naruto took off his own shoes obligingly. The living room opened up into a dining area with a single table large enough to seat 6 or 7 people, and Naruto could see another opening that led into the bedrooms and a bathroom. It was a larger apartment than his own, obviously meant for 2 or 3 people. Sasuke was sitting at the head of the dining room table, staring at the wall with a disinterested look. You can sit with Sasuke, dinner is almost ready. We're just waiting on Sakura, I guess." Her tone didn't reflect it, but Naruto remembered the distaste in it for the pink-haired girl this morning. She moved through another open doorway that obviously led to a small kitchen. Naruto could spot the sink. He pulled a chair out by Sasuke's own and sat by the boy, who was wearing what he had wore earlier in the day. The Uchiha boy turned and looked at him for the first time, glaring. "That's Aiko's seat." Naruto quickly got up and moved to the seat next to it, not wanting to offend his irritable host any farther. Sorry." Sasuke merely grunted and turned back to his fascinating wall. Naruto stared at the table, not wanting to be seen staring around the place with awe. It was clean, much cleaner than his apartment, which was quite honestly a pigsty. There were no ramen cups and clothes littering the floor here. Although it was obviously lived in, everything was orderly. Aiko and Sasuke had a bookcase that was filled with many different types of books, manga, and scrolls. Naruto recognized a few popular manga, and also saw some cookbooks, stories, ninja manuals, technique scrolls, and some of their old academy books. You have a nice home," Naruto offered to Sasuke, who simply grunted again. Naruto felt a pang of annoyance, but ignored it. This wasn't his home, he reminded himself. He was a guest. A few knocks on the door made both Sasuke and Naruto turn. Aiko's voice called from the kitchen, "Get that, will you, Sasuke-chan?" "I'm a bit busy." Sasuke scowled, but stood to go answer the door. Naruto snickered a bit at what Aiko called her brother. "Sasuke-chan, haha, how embarrassing." As soon as Sasuke opened the door, Sakura's bubbly voice filtered toward Naruto. Sasuke ignored her and returned to his seat at the table. Sakura tried to take Aiko's seat, and was given the same angry glare. Sakura quickly moved to the seat on the opposite side of the table, still near to Sasuke. Watching Sasuke talk about his sister, Naruto realized how possessive he was of her. She was his only family now. Naruto wondered if he would be equally as clingy if he had a brother or sister. Sakura seemed to have gained the good sense to be quiet, although she made a comment about Naruto's clothes being the same as the ones he had worn earlier. It made Naruto want to roll his eyes and yell that Sasuke was wearing the same thing as well, but he decided against getting in a fight at the first house he'd ever been invited to. "Food's ready." Aiko exited the kitchen with some takoyaki and udon with shrimp. "Could you get the rest, Sasuke?" Sasuke rose and went into the kitchen. He came out with a large bowl of miso soup, cutlery, and a stack of 4 plates, which he quickly distributed. With a quick chorus of "Itadakimasu," the new teammates dug in. There was no ramen, but Naruto found the takoyaki, which was basically breaded balls that were filled with octopus, to be delicious. Sasuke was scarfing down the udon quickly, but Naruto was able to snag a bowl, under Sasuke's glare. "Eat something else, Sasuke-chan." Aiko chided, "You can't just eat udon all the time." Sasuke grunted, but grabbed some takoyaki to appease his sister. Sakura didn't eat much, instead taking the time to gaze at Sasuke with star-struck eyes. Aiko ate a modest portion, but it was clear that Naruto and Sasuke were consuming the bulk of the food. Naruto quickly tore his way through several bowls of miso soup and nearly a dozen balls of takoyaki, while Sasuke had consumed much of the shrimp udon and ate his fair share of the takoyaki. Soon there was only one takoyaki ball left. Sasuke and Naruto eyed each other. Sasuke slurped up one last udon noodle and Naruto gulped down the rest of the takoyaki he was currently eating. Their chopsticks moved at the same time and began to joust over the last ball. "It's," Sasuke grunted. "Mine." Naruto growled. Aiko scowled. "Sasuke. Naruto is a guest, let him have it." Sakura quickly took the other side. "Naruto, it's Sasuke-kun's home. Let him have the last takoyaki." Both of their chopsticks moved away at the same time. Sasuke stiffly spoke, "Take it." Naruto replied, "I don't want it. I insist." "No, I assist." "Boys." Aiko muttered. She quickly moved her own chopsticks in and deftly swept the ball up and gobbled it up, swallowing quickly. "There, problem solved." Sasuke snorted, Naruto laughed, and Sakura giggled. Soon all 4, even Sasuke, were laughing. Any tension that had been present disappeared, and the 4 teammates all helped clear the table and clean up. They then retired to the living room. Aiko offered to pull out some board games, but Sasuke and Naruto quickly agreed on playing poker. It wasn't the most interesting game with only 4 people. Sakura was inexperienced with Hold'em and quickly went out. Aiko, who wasn't that interested in the game, followed soon after. Sasuke and Aiko had played many card games in earnest to pass time over the years, and Sasuke was well experienced with many types of poker, and Hold'em was his best game. Naruto had spent years sneaking into Konoha's casinos and barrooms, and had even sat in at a council poker game for the Hokage, who had to deal with some business at the time, even though they had been playing a mixture of 5-card draw and stud poker, which were different than Hold'em. Hold'em was one of the simplest games. Each player was dealt 2 cards face down, and a round of betting proceeded. 3 community cards were then put down in the middle, another round of betting followed, and then 2 more cards were placed down, with betting between them. Then the players would show down their hands, and the one with the best hand won the pot. More than anything, Naruto was lucky when it came to games of chance. The Hokage had only been gone for 15 minutes, yet Naruto had managed to knock out and seize the chips of 3 of the players, not really out of skill, but luck of the draw. In this friendly home game, he had made the best hand by the river, the last community card dealt, nearly every time. Aiko and Sakura chatted as the boys sparred with their chips. In the final hand it came down to a race. Sasuke raised a lot of chips pre-flop, the first round of betting, and Naruto called him down with a suited king and a 10 of spades. The board came 2-7A with 2 spades. Sasuke raised again, and Naruto thought for a moment, before shoving the rest of his chips in. Naruto had Sasuke covered, but the boy called, flipping over 2 aces. This gave Sasuke 3 of a kind and put him ahead, with Naruto drawing to a flush 5 suited cards. With the board he had 4 of the 5 needed, with 2 more cards, the turn and river, to come. Sure enough, Naruto hit his flush on the river to win the pot and the game. Lucky, Sasuke muttered with a grimace, but held his hand forward in good sportsmanship. Good game. Naruto took it with a grin, and then raked in the chips. The game finished. All 4 cleaned up and sat down to talk. Aiko made some tea for them, and Naruto found it surprisingly good, although it began to make him drowsy. It was getting close to 9 at night, and he usually slept early. Naruto, you're pretty good at poker. Aiko commented, I can almost never beat Sasuke when we play Hold'em. Naruto then spent a good 5 minutes bragging about his awesome skill, and how he knew what cards were coming. It was really bull. Naruto knew that he had gotten lucky a lot, but he knew all games of chance seemed to go his way in the end. Sakura, respectful in someone else's home, didn't pester Sasuke, instead spending much of the time talking to Aiko. The girl hadn't talked to any of her old friends in the academy in years, and Sakura was happy she was finally talking to her again. She had tried for weeks to get Aiko to open up after the Uchiha massacre, but it was to no avail. She and Ino had both drifted away from the Uchiha girl, before drifting apart from each other soon after. She realized that she had been chasing after Sasuke for so long, she didn't even know how Aiko felt about it. If I had a brother, I don't think I would like a bunch of girls chasing after him. In her mind, she decided to back away from Sasuke, at least in Aiko's presence. She didn't want their budding, but frail, new friendship to be ruined. Sakura realized suddenly why she was afraid to lose Aiko again, because she had been alone and friendless for a while. The boys were too immature to make friends with, and all the girls chased after Sasuke and treated anyone else as competition. The only one who didn't was Hinata, and she was too shy for Sakura's taste in a friend. Inwardly, she wondered if every other girl in their class felt as she did. Soon Sakura departed. I'd like to stay later, she apologized, but my mother will worry. Good night Aiko, Sasuke-kun. Naruto. Her 3 teammates bade her goodbye. The other 3 chatted a bit more and Naruto grew drowsier from sitting next to the 2 Uchiha on the warm recliner, the tea settling warmly in his stomach. Naruto? Aiko murmured, before whispering to Sasuke, I think he's asleep. Sasuke scowled, so let's wake him up, we all have to get up early tomorrow. Aiko looked at him disapprovingly, Sasuke, it's nearly 11. We can't send him home like this. He can have the guest room for the night. Sasuke looked at her incredulously, and she firmly met his eyes. The Uchiha boy shrugged. He knew better than to fight with his sister when she got like this. He stared at Naruto for a few seconds, before lifting him up gently, trying not to wake him. He carried the slumbering blonde to the guest room, which was directly across from his. Sasuke then laid his sleeping teammate down, and then threw a blanket over him. Naruto yawned and rolled onto his side. Sasuke rolled his eyes and walked out with a mutter, "Sweet dreams, Dobi." "Naruto?" Aiko murmured, before whispering to Sasuke, "I think he's asleep." Sasuke scowled, "So let's wake him up, we all have to get up early tomorrow." Aiko looked at him disapprovingly, "Sasuke, it's nearly 11, we can't send him home like this. He can have the guest room for the night." Sasuke looked at her incredulously, but she firmly met his eyes. The Uchiha boy shrugged, he knew better than to fight with his sister when she got like this. He stared at Naruto for a few seconds, before lifting him up gently, trying not to wake him. He carried the slumbering blonde to the guest room, which was directly across from his. Sasuke then laid his sleeping teammate down, and then threw a blanket over him. Naruto yawned and rolled onto his side. Sasuke rolled his eyes and walked out with a mutter, "Sweet dreams, Dobi." Naruto dreamt. He usually didn't, and if he did he found it hard to remember them in the morning. This dream started off all right. He and his new team were talking in their seats at the academy, looking happy and cheerful. Then Iruka came and told them it was time for the test, but Naruto couldn't take it because he had already failed. Naruto of course protested, so Iruka set him up with another test, throwing kunai at a stump with Kakashi to supervise. But the stumps moved whenever he threw the kunai and he always missed, and Kakashi always laughed at his efforts. "You're pretty useless, aren't you?" Kakashi drawled, "Looks like you fail." "Too bad, the others all passed." Naruto turned to the sound of laughter. Sasuke, Aiko and Sakura stepped out of the academy showing tests with perfect scores. Their laughter turned malicious when they spotted him looking defeated. "Naruto has failed," Kakashi declared, "he will go back to the academy for another year." "Well, at least you won't be holding Sasuke-kun back anymore." Sakura smiled widely, "You're so annoying, Naruto baka." "Dobi," Sasuke said, but instead of his uninterested look, there was hatred in his eyes. "I told you to stay away from my sister, you get what you deserve." The two walked off together holding hands. Aiko was the last to step up, but her eyes were just as cruel as the others. "I don't know why I ever wanted to be friends with you. You're just an idiot dead last." With that, she walked after her teammates, leaving him behind. Only Kakashi was left, but his visible eye held no compassion. "I need your headband now, Naruto." With trembling hands, Naruto handed it over, and watched in despair as Kakashi broke it in two, throwing the pieces back at Naruto's feet. Numbly, Naruto stared down at the broken pieces of the forehead protector that Iruka-sensei had presented to him after the ordeal with Mizuki. "I need your mask, too." "Sensei? I'm not wearing a mask." Naruto stammered, trying to grin. Kakashi didn't laugh, his voice became angry. "Don't play games with me, you little demon. You hide behind that cute little face, laughing and grinning stupidly at everything that goes around you. To hide the fact that you want to kill us all, well, we're not fooled. The third should have killed you the moment he found out what you were." It's me, Kakashi-sensei, I don't have a mask." "Liar." Kakashi rumbled harshly, pulling out a kunai. "If you don't take off that fake face, that mask, I'll just have to cut it off then." The Junin began to walk towards him slowly. Naruto found his legs wouldn't move, the Junin grew closer. The kunai was raised as Kakashi reached to grasp his shoulder and the hand was real. Naruto's eyes snapped open and jerked away from the touch of Sasuke, who was surprised at his outburst. "All I had to do was touch you? I've been trying to wake you up for 5 minutes." Naruto blinked and tried to wake up. Why was Sasuke in his where was he? It obviously wasn't his room, he could tell that much. Sasuke followed his gaze and explained, "You fell asleep last night, and Aiko insisted you should stay in the guest room." "Thanks." Sasuke looked at him weirdly, "Are you feeling okay?" "Whatever, the bathroom is yours. It's only 6:15 in the morning, so you have time to shower before we head over to Training Ground 7. Naruto nodded weakly and gave a small smile, trying to regain his composure from his vivid dream. It had felt so real. Sasuke quickly made his exit now that Naruto was awake. The blonde himself quietly got out of the bed, noticing that a blanket had been thrown over him during the night. A wave of emotions went through him. He was deeply touched that the two siblings had allowed him to sleep in their home, when they could have easily woken him and sent him on his way. That's what scared him the most. If he failed this test, he wouldn't be allowed to move on with Sasuke or Aiko, who were the best students in their class and would most definitely pass. Kakashi's suggestion not to eat made a whole lot of sense to Naruto right now, as a wave of nausea swept over him. He fought to control it. The last thing he wanted to do was throw up in his teammate's nice guest room. The blonde silently exited the room and entered the hall. The bathroom was off to the right of him, and he entered it. It was a little steamed from recent obvious use. Naruto washed his face and used the bathroom. Although it had taken some effort to loosen his muscles and urinate, he didn't try the shower, feeling a bit weirded out by the idea of using the same shower that Sasuke and Aiko used. He knew them a bit better, but not that well. Not this well, not well enough to spend the night, to be shown kindness like this. Iruka had preached to them many times that their teams would become like family, but Naruto hadn't dared to imagine how true that could possibly be. No one even wanted to be friends with him, much the less family. Yet here he was. If someone had told him yesterday he would sleep over Uchiha Sasuke's home after having dinner with him, Aiko, and Sakura, he would have told them quite loudly to check themselves into a mental institution. He walked out of the bathroom with a mental shake of his head and greeted Aiko quietly, who was sitting at the dining room table drinking some coffee and decked in her customary light green top with the Uchiha fan and dark green shorts, both of which were both very form-fitting. Her hair was done up in a ponytail, and her headband tied directly to her forehead. He wrinkled his nose when she offered some coffee to him. "Coffee tastes bad, it's so bitter. I can add some sugar and milk to yours if you want," Aiko offered. Naruto still refused. His stomach was still queasy. "Kakashi-sensei said we shouldn't eat anything, maybe you shouldn't be drinking coffee either." "Kakashi isn't the boss of me," Aiko said firmly. "Besides, I might not be on his team very long if I don't pass the exam." "Of course you'll pass," Naruto said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You are at the top of the class, you have nothing to worry about." Before Aiko could reply, Sasuke stepped out from his room and moved past Naruto, towards the door. "He's right," Sasuke called over his shoulder, "you'll be fine." "The Dobi should be worried though." Sasuke's words rang out to him, and he remembered Dream Sasuke's words. Dobi. Sasuke was right, he should be worried, and the blonde was worried. He was downright terrified. Naruto was pretty sure he wasn't this scared when facing down Mizuki, or when the man had told him that he was the demon Kyuubi. Aiko took one last gulp of her coffee and set it on the table. She gave Naruto a smile. "Don't listen to him. Just do your best." Naruto gulped hard, and nodded, trying to return her smile. The Uchiha girl looked him up and down frowning. "You don't have your kunai or shuriken, do you, Naruto?" Naruto's eyes widened. He hadn't brought them with him when he visited their house in the evening. Aiko recognized this as well. "No point in running all the way home to get them. We have a few extra sets that should be just fine." She opened a nearby cabinet and pulled out a utility belt with pouches for kunai and shuriken. They were detachable so he could hook them to his legs if he wanted, and they also had several other pockets that were empty. Naruto thanked her profusely and tied the belt up. For a second he felt weird, light, off balance, but he chalked it up to nerves. "Can we go now?" Sasuke asked impatiently, and Aiko slapped him lightly over the head, but walked out the door in front of him. Naruto followed, and Sasuke locked up behind them. It was early morning, and there was a light fog. The sun hadn't quite risen, leaving it a bit dark. The three moved quickly into the city towards where they knew the training grounds to be. Konoha wasn't small, so even for shinobi it took a good 10 minutes to maneuver the light traffic of the street and rooftops to reach their destination. The city was waking up at this time, and Naruto observed some women chattering and heading towards the market, men going to work, and shinobi jumping over the rooftops towards where he knew Hokage Tower to be to receive their missions for the day. He watched a group of academy kids laughing childishly and heading towards the ninja academy. They looked to only be a year younger than Naruto, and with a sinking feeling he realized that if he didn't pass today, he would most likely end up in a class with those kids. But then he thought again, they never had anyone that was older in their own class, so it was possible that the rejects and failures were put together after they failed again. It didn't make him feel any better. The two Uchiha and Naruto met a yawning Sakura at the training grounds. The pink-haired girl looked like she hadn't gotten much sleep, probably worrying just as much as Naruto. Kakashi had said the test had a 50% fail rate, so most likely two of them would fail. Sakura knew as well as he that Sasuke and Aiko were far ahead of them in terms of practical skill. Sakura had average grades in the physical aspects of being a shinobi, and Naruto was considered below average. At the other spectrum were Sasuke and Aiko, who were at the top of the class when it came to basic weapons, taijutsu, and survival training. Unlike the other two, the Uchiha siblings looked perfectly relaxed. Heart-pounding, Naruto waited as Aiko chatted amicably with a nervous Sakura, while Sasuke leaned against the tree that they were sitting under. At 10 minutes past 7, Kakashi still hadn't shown and Blonde began to get a sinking feeling in his stomach. Where is he? Sakura wondered aloud. Is he really going to be late every day? The others also quickly realized that they hadn't exactly gotten the cream of the crop of Junin instructors. They passed the time by talking. Sakura had interestedly asked about Aiko's scores in the final Genin test. Although she was modest about it, she had scored above average on everything, excellent in areas such as history, math, anatomy, along with the physical aspects of the test. Her Bunshin no Jutsu, the final jutsu test, had been perfect as well. Sasuke had much of the same scores, but with the best scores in most of the areas. Kiba had beaten him in tracking, and Sakura had beaten him in the written tests, although his scores were close. Sakura had done quite well in the written, but her physical scores were not as good, she admitted to the others. Most of her scores in the area had graded as average, but her taijutsu score had been below average. Naruto had remained silent through the conversation, but in the end they turned him expectantly. They already knew he had the worst grades in the class overall, but they didn't know how bad. He mumbled it out. He had scored well below average on all of the written exams, his physical skills were about average, but his taijutsu form was horrible and he had failed the basic weapon skills test in accuracy. His Bunshin had been a complete failure. How did you become a ninja? Sakura wondered aloud. There's no way you should have passed with those scores. You didn't pass. I remember. Sasuke recalled seeing Naruto sitting headbandless and dejected on the swing while the others celebrated. Naruto gulped but managed to say, I don't want to talk about it. Geez, just tell us. Sakura rolled her eyes. It's not like it's some big secret. Iruka-sensei gave you some kind of extra credit assignment, right? That's what I heard at least. Even in a village where keeping secrets was a part of the job, rumors still got out about anything interesting. Sakura wasn't quite at the top of the gossipers, but she was a close second to Ino. Naruto nodded slowly. Yeah, that's basically what happened. Aiko figured there was a lot more to the story, but stayed silent, as did the others. Naruto was obviously uncomfortable enough talking about his scores, much less why he had passed even with such terrible markings. They were silent for a while after the slightly uncomfortable end to a talk that the other three genin had been prideful of speaking about. Sasuke finally gave up on leaning against the tree and climbed up to lay down on a branch. Aiko rested her head against the same tree and closed her eyes. Naruto watched Sakura nod off several times and jerk awake. Naruto sat nearby, not against the tree but close to it. It gave him a clear view of his three teammates. Sakura had finally given up and fallen asleep, and Sasuke appeared to be gazing at the sky as the sun fully rose to bring morning. Aiko was in some ways the funniest to look at, her mouth hung slightly open, and Naruto noticed a bit of drool at the corner. She was also making a funny little snoring sound that made Naruto want to laugh, but didn't in fear of waking her and Sakura up. Glancing up, he saw Sasuke glaring down at him, and Naruto became aware that he had been staring at Aiko for a few seconds longer than he should have been. Naruto quickly turned away, deciding to try and ignore Sasuke's eyes on him. They stayed in relative silence for another 2 hours. They were jittery and very hungry. Naruto could hear Sakura's stomach growling, and his own was beginning to make sounds. He half wished that he had taken Aiko up on the offer for coffee, at least he would have something in him then. Kakashi chose that moment to appear in a puff of smoke, to cries of, "You're late." From Naruto and Sakura, Aiko and Sasuke both glared at the man in twin Uchiha fashion. The Junin ignored them and gave them all an eye smile. Sorry, I got lost on the road of life. What the hell kind of excuse is that? Naruto shouted, standing up. Do you have any idea how long we've been waiting? Kakashi did happen to know, considering he had arrived almost 2 hours ago to stare at the memorial stone, not far off from where the genin were waiting for him, but he didn't mention that. So, Kakashi clapped his hands. Everyone ready to take the test? Sasuke looked determined, and Aiko was also looking fine. Naruto was trembling slightly, and Sakura's stomach chose that moment to growl loudly. She hadn't eaten anything since the dinner at the Uchiha household, and even then she hadn't eaten very much, which she regretted now. Alright then. Kakashi pulled out 2 bells and gave them a little jingle. The test is simple. To pass the exam you must get one of these bells from me before the timer. He pulled out a clock and set it to go off at 11. Goes off. If you don't get a bell, you fail and go back to the academy. Got it? There are only 2 bells. Sakura's heart sunk. Maybe she would be able to get a bell before Naruto, but no way could she beat Aiko or Sasuke to 1. Naruto had very similar thoughts running through his head. Remember, come at me with intent to kill, or you won't succeed. The 4 genin stood still for a second. Kakashi tapped the clock, and 3 tensed and disappeared into the forest, hiding themselves from Kakashi. Naruto remained. You know, I think the others have the right idea. Kakashi recalled what the blonde's file said. You're a bit of an idiot, aren't you? Even if I get a bell, Aiko might not pass. Sasuke will probably get a bell for sure. What do I do? His heart was pounding. The last thing he wanted was to be on a team alone with Sasuke, who had the personality of a rock, an angry rock. Wait, Naruto declared, I got it. Kakashi was amused. Got what? I'll take both of your bells, and I'll give one to Aiko-chan, then we'll both pass. Kakashi almost laughed. You won't even be able to get 1 bell from me. The man began to pull something from inside his flak jacket, and Naruto tensed up. A weapon? The silver-haired Junin didn't pull out a weapon however, instead he came out with a little orange book. To Naruto's outrage, he opened it up and began reading it. The blonde growled and rushed at the man. He would show Kakashi. You better take me serious. The blonde yelled, throwing a wild windmill punch to Kakashi's face. His eye never leaving the book, Kakashi caught the fist with a giggle as he read a particularly dirty line. Undeterred, Naruto continued his assault, but every punch and kick was blocked with ease. This continued for a minute and Naruto began to grow more outraged as Kakashi's face never left the book. Jumping back he growled, don't underestimate me dammit. He flipped open the kunai and shuriken pouches. From 5 feet he wouldn't miss. Uzumaki barrage. Kakashi looked up and saw the wave of weapons fly past him, mostly above his head, to either side, and some fly straight up. Are you really supposed to be a ninja? The man asked, disbelief coloring his tone. What the hell? Naruto picked up one of the nearest kunai. He hadn't really inspected the set that Aiko and Sasuke had let him borrow, but they were way lighter than his own. His heart sunk into his stomach. Weren't all kunai supposed to be the same? Did Aiko sabotage him? Dreading the thought of being betrayed like that, he shook his head in frustration. Damn you Kakashi-sensei. You and your stupid test. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. While Naruto grappled unsuccessfully with the teacher, the others watched the idiocy unfold before them. Aiko watched in horror as every single kunai and shuriken missed their teacher. There had been absolutely nothing wrong with the set she had given him, it was brand new. Yet even Naruto's aim wasn't that bad. Something was wrong. What had she done? Her heart sank. She may have single-handedly screwed up Naruto's chances of passing, even if they had already appeared slim. The Uchiha girl then watched in amazement as Naruto rebounded and formed solid clones, something they definitely weren't taught in the academy. Yet it was to no avail. Kakashi didn't even look up from his book as 10 Narutos piled on him, punching and kicking, desperately trying to reach the bells. Aiko had heard Naruto say that he would try and get both to make sure she passed was more than a little touched, even though the boy was probably more thinking along the lines of not ending up with Sasuke or Sakura, who clearly despised him. What made Aiko's heart sink even farther was how easily Kakashi was decimating Naruto without even trying. Naruto didn't even have to beat the Junin, just grab a bell, but he never even came close with 10 sets of hands. Aiko knew she was faster than Naruto, but it was obvious that Kakashi would be way above her skill level. This test is so stupid. We're supposed to be building a team. Instead Kakashi is breaking us up, and splitting us apart over some bells. She couldn't learn from this aloof Junin, this man who told them little more than his name, who broke a team apart, instead of trying to build it up. Aiko knew that the 4 of them could work well together. It wasn't fair that 2 or more of them would be sent back to the academy. Making up her mind, A plan formed in her head. Sakura had hidden in a bush, and watched as Kakashi finally finished Naruto with a painful-looking poke in the ass. She had gasped a bit too loud, thinking that Kakashi was going to use a fire technique when his fingers took up the shape of the Taurus seal, and she knew he would find her now. As quickly and quietly as she could, she ditched her hiding place and ran deeper into the forest. It really was useless. Naruto was obviously the worst on the team, possibly the worst ninja ever, but she wasn't much better than him with speed and taijutsu, and she definitely couldn't form solid clones. There was no way she was getting a bell from Kakashi, but Aiko and Sasuke probably would. Back to the academy, she thought miserably, what would her mother say? The pink-haired girl had argued for years with her mother that she could become a ninja. She worked hard to ace every test to prove it. Her mother would use this as validation that she shouldn't be a ninja. It was times like this that she envied Naruto's lack of parents, no one to punish him or chide him for doing things his way instead of their way. Naruto had a great, carefree life. Saw Sakura? She turned to the broken voice and shrieked wildly. Uchiha Sasuke, riddled with kunai and shuriken, was crawling to her, bleeding profusely. Help me. It was too much. The pink-haired girl fainted. From a short distance away, Kakashi shook his head. For a girl with such high test scores, Sakura sure didn't handle the field well at all. This team is just like the rest, selfish and immature. Oh sensei, Obito, what has happened to the village you loved? Sasuke waited, and saw the moment when Kakashi was distracted. He prepared to unleash his trap. Pissed, Sasuke-chan. His heart jumped and he nearly fell out of the tree, before turning to the curious face of his sister. What's wrong with you? Sasuke whispered hotly, that was my chance to get Kakashi. How did you know I was here? Anyways. You're predictable. Aiko said simply, anyways, you aren't going to catch Kakashi off guard like that, he's a Junin. Don't you see how he's taking Naruto apart? Naruto is an idiot. Nonetheless, little brother of mine. I spotted the kunai trap on the way here. Why wouldn't Kakashi? You would just give away your position. You're only older by 3 minutes, damn it. Sasuke thought about it, and grudgingly concluded she was right. Aiko poked him in the head, of course I am, I'm the oldest. Before Sasuke could retort, Aiko mumbled, I have a plan, and we'll both pass, but we need to work together. Me and you? Yes. Sasuke smirked. Kakashi wouldn't know what hit him. They found Kakashi quickly enough after Sakura's scream. The man was simply standing by the water, reading his book and giggling occasionally. It looked like he didn't have a care in the world, much the less checking his surroundings. Sasuke quickly jumped down in front of the Junin. Hello there. I'm not like the others, you know. Yeah, you're more of an emo than them. Sasuke's eye twitched, but he ignored the barb, quickly moving in for an attack to buy time for Aiko to set the trap. Kakashi appeared ignorant, rushing in, huh? Looks like you and Naruto are the same. All of Sasuke's attempts were blocked, although Kakashi seemed to pay a bit more attention than he had with Naruto. With a fierce haymaker, Sasuke pushed Kakashi off balance as he caught the punch. Sasuke quickly flipped and reached out, touching a bell, but was then swiftly tossed away. He flipped and landed several meters away. That should have been enough time. Aiko should be springing the trap about now. He waited. Nothing happened. How could she not be finished? Aiko set up traps almost as quickly as he did, and the trap wasn't a difficult one. Giving up? Kakashi took his lack of movement for surrender. How arrogant, considering Sasuke had touched a bell, even if he hadn't been able to quite grab it. He quickly began to form seals. He had to distract Kakashi for longer then. The Junin looked up from his book, recognizing the seals right away. For a rookie genin to know a technique like that. Sasuke grinned and breathed in deeply, the same as Naruto, was he? Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. A thin needle of flame flew from Sasuke's lips and exploded into a huge fireball that consumed Kakashi. Sasuke let up on the attack quickly after seeing a poof. It was a clone. Right, left, up. Where was Kakashi? Where was Aiko, for that matter? Two hands suddenly shot out from the dirt under him, and before he could try and get away, they grabbed him. Kakashi then dragged him into the dirt up to his head, before pulling himself out. The Junin stood before him lazily, his book open once more. Doden. Shinju Zanchu no Jutsu. The Junin knelt down and ruffled Sasuke's hair. You're different than the others, Sasuke-kun. Before he jumped away, he finished with an eye smile. You scowl a lot more than them. Sasuke was more than a little bit angry. Aiko, you can get me out now. He waited, and no one came out of the woods. Where the hell was his sister? Why hadn't she sprung the trap? Did Kakashi somehow get her while fighting him? Finally there was movement from the bushes on the left of him, and a familiar pink-haired girl appeared. She took one look at Sasuke's head, shrieked loudly, and fainted before he could say a word, leaving him with the arduous task of trying to dig himself out. Before he was even halfway done, Naruto appeared from the bushes and took his sweet time laughing before finally helping him out of the earth. Thanks, Sasuke said grudgingly. You know, I bet if we work together. Naruto looked thoughtful. We could probably get the bells away from him. So you can give one to my sister? Sasuke shot back, trying to leave me behind? The Aiko and Naruto team, huh? While I go back to the academy, now you know you're not strong enough to get a bell, you come begging to me for help, trying to get me to ditch my sister. It's not like that. Naruto replied hotly, but Sasuke already turned away. I think it's exactly like that. I already touched a bell anyways. I don't need Adobe's help. Next time I'll grab both of them and make sure you don't get one. So you can go back to the academy where you belong. Before Naruto could retort, they both heard the distant ring of the clock's alarm, and Sakura stirred behind them, yawning. She looked at Sasuke. Sasuke-kun. You're alright? Thank goodness, I thought you had been beheaded. Naruto ignored her, his heart sinking. He had failed to get a bell, his dream was coming true. All that was left was for Kakashi to destroy his headband and watch as everyone walked away from him, leaving him alone. Again, Aiko, Sakura, do you know why you're tied to the logs? Because we didn't get a bell. Sakura stammered out. Naruto and Sasuke had informed her that she had fainted again after seeing Sasuke buried up to his head in the dirt from one of Kakashi's jutsu. Not only did she fail to get a bell, she had fainted in front of her crush. It was so embarrassing. Not only that, Kakashi's voice was stern. You failed to even attempt to get a bell. At least Naruto tried. Neither of you did even that much. Not to mention you fainted under a very low-level genjutsu, and I never even saw you, Aiko. Kakashi turned away from them and looked at the cenotaph for the dead. You know why people get their names carved on this stone? They were all KIA. Wow, what's that mean, Kakashi-sensei? Do you think I could get my name on that stone? Naruto asked, excited about the prospect of being remembered forever by the village. Naruto? Sakura said softly, KIA means killed in action. Naruto's smile disappeared, and his features became stricken. Kakashi sighed, right, well I've decided. He turned back to face them again, smiling. None of you should return to the academy. We, pass? Sakura's voice was hopeful. Naruto whooped and Sasuke smirked. Aiko's face remained stony. I think all four of you should just quit being ninja. You're really all quite useless. Naruto gaped, hopes gone again. Sasuke took it a lot less readily. He quickly dashed at Kakashi, pulling out a kunai and moving to stab the older man. Before he had a chance, Kakashi disarmed him of the weapon and had him on his back while he sat atop him. Trash. I'm disappointed in you, Sasuke. Kakashi pulled out another kunai and tossed it to Naruto before holding Sasuke's kunai to his neck. Naruto. Kill Aiko or Sasuke dies. What? Never. So you'd let Sasuke die to save Aiko? No. I mean, why are you doing this, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi slowly removed the kunai from Sasuke's neck and got off of him. With a little push, Sasuke was stumbling back to sit by them. Do you understand the point of this little bell test? You're trying to break us apart. The Junin lazily glanced at Aiko, so you do speak. We're supposed to be a team, but all your stupid test did was break us apart. Aiko said in disgust, you're no teacher, you know nothing about teaching kids. I bet you've never had a team before, have you? Just because you can fight doesn't mean you know anything about leading a team. Sasuke isn't the trash, you are, Kakashi-sensei. Instead of getting angry like she thought he would, Kakashi laughed long and hard. Finally his laughter subsided. So wrong, he murmured, but right, at the same time. The Junin's face became completely serious. The point of this test was teamwork. Immediately there were a shockwave of protests. How could it possibly be about teamwork? Sasuke demanded hotly, there are only 2 bells, only 2 people could pass. Sasuke-kun is right, sensei. Sakura chimed, How could we possibly work as a team if not all of us could pass? We were supposed to work as a team, even though there were only 2 bells. Aiko murmured in realization, it was never about the bells. Kakashi smiled, exactly. The silver-haired Junin glanced back at the stone for a long moment. Someone close to me once told me, anyone who doesn't follow the rules is trash, but anyone who abandons their teammates is worse than trash. No one said anything. Aiko cursed herself for not realizing the true purpose behind the test. She didn't realize that Kakashi was that deep. She had assumed him to be someone who didn't care about teamwork, who didn't want to keep them together, and who wanted to split them up. Instead, it was the opposite. Once she had thought she knew Kakashi and his true motives, she went to work to make sure they would all fail. Sakura had already fainted, Naruto had tried and failed, and she made sure that Sasuke would fail as well, making him wait for her to spring a trap on Kakashi that would never come. Instead she hid, watching the fight from afar. Even without her, her brother had almost succeeded, but as she expected, even he was no match for Kakashi. If I had only seen the true motive. Instead of working to keep them separate, she could have pulled the genin together. Sasuke would listen to her, as would Naruto and Sakura. It's my fault. Aiko realized, we failed because of me. Sensei. Aiko murmured, don't send the others back to the academy, just send me. No. Sasuke said hotly, and Naruto began to protest as well. Aiko smiled slightly, Naruto, you have to go on and become Hokage, and Sasuke, you have to get stronger under a good teacher. She turned back to Kakashi, please. The man stared long and hard at her, before sighing, I'll give you all one last shot at getting the bells. Naruto, Sasuke, eat up. You'll need your strength, but don't feed Aiko or Sakura, or you'll all automatically fail. With that, the man teleported away in a swirl of leaves, leaving the 4 genin and 2 lunchboxes behind. Naruto opened his stomach, growling. It was a simple lunch with some soup, onigiri, and juice. Sasuke appeared to have a similar lunch. The 2 boys stared at each other for a moment, and Naruto began to glance around for Kakashi, but didn't see him. I don't sense him in the area. Sasuke said, almost reading his mind. Pulling out an onigiri, he held it up to Aiko's mouth. Eat up, sis. Sasuke. Aiko hissed, we can't eat, I already made us fail once. I'll be fine to fight later, I don't need food, eat it yourself. Sasuke Teme is tough, and I'm amazing, but we can't beat him on our own, and you 2 can't fight on an empty stomach, it's gonna take all of us to get those bells. He offered an onigiri to Sakura, who closed her mouth tight in protest. Come on Sakura, Naruto coaxed, you have to eat. I can hear your stomach growling. Sakura stared at the rice ball. I love onigiri, the pink-haired girl whispered, as her stomach gave another squeal of hunger. Next to her, Aiko sighed and took a tentative bite of the rice ball Sasuke offered. With one last growl, Sakura gave in as well, just because you're feeding me doesn't mean we're going out. Naruto was genuinely confused, how does feeding you like a baby make us going out? Sakura chose not to answer, instead biting a big chunk of the onigiri, chewing, and swallowing quickly. Aiko was already a quarter of a way through her own. Suddenly the sky got dark, and Kakashi jumped down out of nowhere. Lightning flashing behind him, Kakashi's eye was narrow, you guys. The 4 genin waited for their punishment in silence. Naruto's mouth went dry. Sasuke glared defiantly. Sakura wished she had gotten a few more bites, and Aiko wondered what remedial classes were like in the academy. Pass. But sensei. Naruto and Sasuke fed us. Sakura stammered, I thought you said? Kakashi smiled, I just gave a speech on how those who follow the rules over helping their comrades are worse than trash. You guys are something special, the first team I ever passed. The others just ran around following every order I gave them blindly, they had no idea how to come together as a team. Wahoo! Naruto cheered happily, we're gonna be the most awesome team ever. Hey Kakashi-sensei, teach us some cool jutsu and stuff. In time Naruto, the Junin laughed, I've never had a team before, and I have to draw up a schedule for our training. But meet here tomorrow at 9 o'clock for our first mission and training session. Can we train on our own, sensei? Aiko asked. Kakashi nodded, of course, you should have plenty of time for training yourselves, and I expect you to, actually. The Junin turned away, I have to go tell the Hokage I've accepted you as my team, see you tomorrow. In a swirl of leaves, the Junin disappeared, leaving 4 very happy genin behind. Sasuke spoke first. We all passed. Don't sound too happy there, Sasuke-chan. Aiko replied sarcastically. Sakura struggled against the ropes. Can you get us out of these ropes? They're starting to chafe. The boys cut the ropes that held the two girls to the posts. Sakura stretched and cheered. We passed. Hey Sasuke-kun, do you want to go get something to eat? Sasuke grunted, but Aiko butt in. We should all go get something to eat, but where do we go? I know a great sushi place, Sakura started. Ramen, Naruto shouted. Udon. Sasuke glared at the blonde. Aiko sighed. I was actually hoping to go and try that new stand near our house, the one that serves complete meals. I'll go where you want, Sasuke-kun. Sakura said quickly. Come on Naruto, udon is kind of like ramen anyways. Naruto tensed remembering the last time he had entered the udon owner's stand. You guys can go if you want. I just don't want udon. Aiko stared at him strangely. I thought you said it was good last night at dinner. Naruto panicked a bit. Yeah, but I really want ramen. How about we just get takeout and meet up here? No way. I want to sit down and eat in a proper restaurant. Sakura replied. Naruto wasn't going to wreck her, almost, date with Sasuke. How about this? Aiko tried to compromise. Sakura and Sasuke can go get udon, and Naruto and I can get ramen, then afterwards we can hang out at our apartment. Sasuke's face showed he didn't like this compromise, but his stomach was demanding udon. Fine. The Uchiha boy reluctantly agreed, and Sakura smiled widely. This was even better. Aiko would distract Naruto Baka and she would have Sasuke-kun all to herself. Finally agreeing, the four split and head into town, but in different directions. Aiko and Naruto made it to Ichiraku ramen and Naruto plopped down onto his usual stool, one large miso ramen, old man. To celebrate the passing of the most amazing genin ever, Aiko was quickly introduced to the man who ran Naruto's favorite stand, Teuchi-san and his daughter Ayame, who was a few years older than them. Aiko-chan, what do you want to order? Naruto questioned. One medium ramen with pork sounds good, she said, staring at the menu that hung in the stand, listing the orders and prices. Teuchi smiled, coming right up. Soon, he and Ayame had two bowls set out in front of them. Both genin ate hungrily, but Aiko's speed had nothing on Naruto, who seemed to inhale the ramen. She was barely a quarter of the way through when he had finished his first bowl and started his second. So Naruto, Teuchi's eyes gleamed. Who is this young lady? Aren't you going to introduce us to your date? Naruto gagged. What? It's not like that, old man. Me and Aiko are just teammates. Aiko's cheeks tinged pink but she nodded quickly as well. Ayame and Teuchi exchanged knowing smiles, while the genin glanced at each other before turning back to their meals. Old man. Why did you have to go and embarrass me like that? So Aiko-chan. Naruto asked quietly while Teuchi was busy with another customer. What was up with those weird kunai you gave me? They were so light. I saw that. Aiko remembered how Naruto had somehow missed Kakashi with every throw, but they're a standard set. Mine are the exact same. Aiko pulled a kunai from her pack and Naruto did the same. He had recollected all the very light kunai after his disastrous battle with Kakashi, and they had all been too light. These are way lighter than my set. Naruto wondered aloud. You could probably throw these wicked fast. The Uchiha girl knew there was nothing wrong with her kunai and shuriken. Naruto, can I see some of your kunai? After we finish up here? Naruto nodded. Aiko had finished her bowl and patiently waited as Naruto finished his third bowl. The two departed after paying for their meals. Naruto wasn't sure if he should pay for Aiko's since it wasn't really a date, and was relieved when she simply put money down for her own bowl. As they drew nearer to his apartment, his heart sank as he remembered how messy it was in comparison to the Uchiha residence. I knew I should have cleaned. There was no turning back now, and Aiko shook her head as they entered. Geez Naruto. I wonder if our apartment would look like this if I didn't clean up after Sasuke. It wasn't pretty. The apartment itself had chipped walls and was relatively small. Scrolls were splayed out on the ground. Clothes were scattered around the two-room apartment. A container of milk and a bowl of half-eaten cereal sat out on the counter and several ramen cups were on the ground. Naruto quickly picked up the cups and tried to fit them in his overflowing garbage but failed miserably. Feeling Aiko's eyes on him, Naruto shrugged helplessly, embarrassed. Wait. I got it. He formed his half-seal, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Suddenly there were 10 Narutos running around, picking up clothes and rolling up scrolls and open books, putting them on a table. One Naruto took out the trash while the others fixed up the rest of the apartment. In less than 5 minutes under Aiko's amused stare, the apartment was relatively clean. "Boys," she muttered, shaking her head. Naruto was rummaging around the main room now. "Where did I put those damn kunai now? This is why I don't clean." Naruto suddenly remembered where one of his clones had put them. Top right drawer by the now fixed bed. "You can remember what your clones do?" Aiko questioned as Naruto suddenly dashed to the correct location of the weapons. Naruto paused, then nodded. "Yeah, I guess so. I just learned the technique, so I'm still not sure I know everything about it." Naruto weighed the kunai in his hand. "Definitely way heavier than yours, Aiko-chan." Aiko ignored the fact that Naruto had started calling her Aiko-chan all the time, in favor of staring at the kunai. "What the?" She took it from Naruto's hand and gaped. It's like half a pound heavier than a normal kunai. How could you possibly throw this? What the hell? Naruto, the blade is dull, and it's uneven to one side. Like this it should veer off course every time. Naruto was confused. They don't look that different. Aiko pulled out her own kunai and compared. They're way different. You'll never have good accuracy or speed with these things. They never seemed so bad to me. I've always used these kunai. Not anymore. You're keeping the set I gave you. I don't know what kind of shop gave you these, but they ripped you off big time. Naruto's face fell. He should have known the shopkeeper had been being too nice to him. It was the best weapons place in Konoha, and he had barely covered the weapon set's outrageous price. He had nearly went hungry that week. "But your kunai are weird. I don't know how to use them," Naruto complained. Aiko decided, "I'll teach you." I can't believe that no one ever noticed before. Aiko was intent on teaching him before their first mission tomorrow. They went back to the training grounds and found Sasuke and Sakura waiting for them. Sakura was chattering away happily while Sasuke sat moodily. Sakura waved to them as they approached, but Sasuke just glared. "What took you so long?" the boy demanded. He had spent the last hour listening to Sakura's mindless buzz and he wanted an explanation. Aiko tossed over one of Naruto's kunai wordlessly. Sasuke caught it deftly in midair, but his brow scrunched as he felt the weight. "What the hell is this? Some kind of weighted kunai?" "It's one of Naruto's regular kunai." Sakura peered at the kunai. "The balance looks off, and one side is bigger than the other. That would make it veer off course, especially if it's heavier." Sakura looked at Naruto in disbelief. "Did you use these on the exam?" "Of course," Naruto said. "What other kunai could I have used?" Sakura groaned. "How did you even get an average score on the accuracy test?" Naruto shrugged. "I'm leaving," Sasuke decided, seeing where this was headed. The dark-haired boy stood, but Aiko pushed him back in his seat. "No, you're not. We're going to help Naruto learn how to use the kunai I gave him." After an Uchiha glare off, Sasuke had decided that it was in his best interests to stay. In all honesty, neither he nor Sakura did much. Aiko watched and corrected Naruto as he threw kunai at the wooden post, correctly his form and giving him tips along the way. A few hours later, Naruto wasn't doing it as well as the others, but was much improved from before. "Well, that was a waste," Sasuke said when they were finally done. "I'm going to train." He jumped off before Aiko could stop him. "Damn him and his attitude," Aiko muttered. "Do you want to come over and hang out like we were planning?" The other two agreed and headed towards the Uchiha district. Along the way Naruto spotted a weary-looking Team 8. "What's up, guys?" Naruto shouted to them, waving. The three stopped, and Kiba gave them a feral grin. "Not much, we just officially passed our genin examination." "Congrats you three." Aiko smiled. "We passed as well." Even with Naruto weighing you guys down? I'm impressed." Kiba laughed. Naruto scowled. "Anytime, Kiba. I'll take you down." "Yeah, sure." Kiba rolled his eyes. "We just finished eating. Where are you headed?" "We're going to relax at my place," Aiko said. Then she had an idea. "Do you three want to come?" The three members of Team 8 looked at each other. "Seeing where you and Sasuke live, that sounds cool with me." Kiba looked at his teammates. Shino nodded, and Hinata quietly stammered, That sounds nice, Aiko-san. I believe we should get cleaned up first." Shino observed, "and perhaps you should not bring Akamaru." "What? Why not? He's potty trained. It is bad manners to bring an animal to someone else's home. What about your bugs? Kiba challenged with a triumphant grin. My bugs are completely dependent on my chakra. If they left they would die, and they are completely obedient. Akamaru is obedient. Then why is he peeing on Naruto's leg? Naruto looked down. Sure enough, a stream of urine was trickling on his pant leg, courtesy of Akamaru. What the hell, damn it Kiba. Hoo-ha-ha. Kiba cracked up laughing. Akamaru must think Naruto is some kind of orange post, because he's dumb as a post. Nice one Akamaru. Now I had to go home and change. Naruto complained, thanks a lot, Akamaru. The dog barked happily in response. Maybe we should all get clean, Aiko suggested. Meet at my apartment in an hour? I'll try and drag Sasuke from training at the same time. The group of genin agreed, and after giving Team 8 directions to the Uchiha homestead, they all split up. Naruto quickly rushed home and changed out of his pants. Unfortunately, he didn't have much to change into. It wasn't his day in the apartment complex to use the washer and dryer, so he couldn't get his jumpsuit clean. Mourning the loss of Orange, he decided on just wearing a white t-shirt with a Konoha spiral on it, and a pair of black shorts. It was a hot day anyways, so he wouldn't need the jumpsuit to keep warm. He had finished so quickly that he had more than a half hour before the official time Aiko had suggested. He could go early, but decided against it. Instead he eyed up his apartment. It was embarrassing when Aiko had seen it last time. It looked a little better now, but most of his clothes had been thrown haphazardly in the closet and drawers. And the kitchen was still a mess with undone dishes for the few times that he didn't eat ramen. Forming seals, he quickly called up some more Kage Bunshin. It really was the best jutsu ever. With a determined speed, the Naruto crew began to clean up the apartment fully. That's all for now. If you enjoyed, then please like, share and do comments.